Welcome to the 2020 Zero Waste Festival, and I'm delighted to be here for the My Zero Waste Journey panel. We've had a really good evening so far. I'm here with a lot of very exciting speakers, and first of all, I just want to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Ngunnawal people, and I'd like to acknowledge their elders, past, present, and emerging. And some of you tonight might be tuning in from other countries, from other First Nations people, and we'd like to acknowledge all of our First Nations people who, of course, are our original zero waste people. And we have a lot to learn on that, but we're all going to learn together. Now, the purpose of tonight is to find out from some of our zero waste pioneers what started them on reducing their waste and what started them on the journey of less is more. And this is part of the heart and soul of our zero waste journey, and we're all going to learn together about how we can do this a little bit better. Now, I'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, we want everybody, you'll notice that your video is turned off. If you can leave your audio off as well, that would be great. Please jump in and log as many questions as you would like in the chat box, and we'll throw those over to our panel. And also, I've just been reminded, I need to introduce myself. Hello, I'm Jo Clay. I'm one of the newest ACT Greens members of the Legislative Assembly. I'm also here tonight because I'm a bit of a recycling industry professional as well. I set up and run a company called Send and Shred, which I set up with the Green Shed in Canberra. And I run a blog called The Carbon Diet, which is about cutting our carbon footprints and reducing our waste. So I've also been on my own personal journey on zero waste and carbon reduction as well. And we're also recording tonight's session, and the session will be going live on, will be going up on Facebook. So if you miss out, or if you need to jump out and make some dinner and look after the kids, don't worry, you can jump in tomorrow and have a little look at what happened. So first of all, I'm going to throw over to our panel, and I'm just going to ask each of our panelists to give us a little 3 or 4 minute spiel about what personally started them on their zero waste journey. And we might start with Jacquie French, who I think probably everybody here tonight is familiar with. Jacquie, can you tell us a little bit about your zero waste journey?
It started because I grew up in a time when everyone had grown up in the Depression or World War II, and it was simply what you did. But again, in the 60s, when I was reaching adulthood, there was a concept of voluntary simplicity, that you really don't need very much money to live a rich life. Probably for me, the zero waste began though with poverty. As a teenager in my 20s, first of all, as a teenager, needing to survive on about $3 a week from a scholarship, which is just possible, but you do actually get very, very thin. Then wanting to buy land to build a house without a mortgage. I think my motto now would be mud, not a mortgage. Of course you can build your own house. And yes, you can build a house from mud, even in this area, and it will still be there 50 years later, as long as the eaves are big enough so it doesn't wash away. And if it does, there's always plenty more mud down in the dam if you mix it with tussock. Money is a little bit like water. I'm very fond of both water and money, but if you sit in either of them too long, you drown. Because of those years of poverty, which in fact weren't choice, definitely weren't choice, I've never got used to a consumerist lifestyle. But also in those years, I fell in love with the dump. You find the most magnificent things in the dump. The first typewriter I wrote my first book on came from the dump. Absolutely immaculate 1950s kitchen setting, which only after you've sat on it for 5 minutes and found you're actually sliding towards the floor, you realise why no one had used it for 30 years. The woodshed came from the dump. The first honey came from the dump. The sink I still use now, most of my windows came from the dump. Because of that, I've always looked just with the concept, there is no such thing as waste. There's just finding something else to do with it. And that is interesting. If you go to Harvey Norman, and look, I apologise to anyone who is employed by Harvey Norman, it's not them in particular, but everything there is boring. It is the same. things that are made with love, things that are made by craftspeople, things that are repaired. The Japanese have got a wonderful craft where broken things are mended and are held to be more beautiful because they are mended. I'm proud to have old and shabby things that I got in the house, and I'm actually rather proud to be old and shabby myself. It has been a very interesting life.
That is marvelous. Let's all embrace the old and shabby and op shopping, vintage and junk, wherever it may lie. Now, Josie, you're the co-founder of the Little Waste Co, and you've been on a bit of a zero waste journey as well. Can you tell us about that?
I think my waste journey really started when I was a kid. Definitely told by my mum to leave somewhere to leave a place the way you found it. And as an adult, having kids, really thinking we weren't leaving the planet the way we had found it. I also look back on my childhood, and I was with my mum was that mum that would cut the mold off cheese, and then she'd put the rest of it in your sandwich, and you'd be going, oh. Or she would save like 2 tablespoons of last night's meal for tomorrow's lunch. And so I think that kind of thing was kind of instilled in me from an early age. So I'm a dietitian, and one of the things about being a dietitian, we get to have access to a lot of the food waste from hospitals, and on scale, food waste is just really shocking. So the waste journey really began when I decided to do something about the waste at Queanbeyan Hospital. We are now the New South Wales' first hospital to have zero food waste to landfill, which is something I'm really proud of. Even though we are a small hospital, it really proves that it can be done on a much larger scale. So Little Waste Company really came about from taking action in small spaces and deciding I was actually quite good at reducing waste and doing it in a way that was economically beneficial and environmentally. So Little Waste Company started, and from there Food to Soil has emerged, and here I am today talking on the panel.
That is fantastic. I love that you've gone to a zero food waste in the hospital, and as we all know, a third of food that gets produced ends up as waste in landfill, so that is truly remarkable to have bypassed that and turned it into a business. That's fantastic. And we also have here tonight, we've got Serena Bird, who has a marvelous podcast and writes The Joyful Frugalista. Serena, can you tell us a little bit about that and about your zero waste journey?
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I won't say that I feel like a fraud, because that's like imposter syndrome, but I guess I've come at things from a slightly different angle, but yet sort of, I guess, the same result, but a slightly different message. And I know, Jo, we were speaking about this before. So I guess my journey really happened back in 2014 when through personal change, when I became suddenly single, when I was granted a domestic violence order, and I suddenly had 2 little kids and, quite considerable things like childcare costs and legal fees and other things. So I'd always been pretty frugal. I think both sides of my family would agree with that. So I'd definitely always been an op shopper. I've got many great things I've found at the tip, and definitely been an op shopper for many years, but it all just took a whole new dimension when money just became very concerning for me for a period of time. And then I sort of thought about it and thought, well, actually financial resilience is something really, really important. It is actually a skill. It is a skill to be able to cook a meal for not very much money and put it on the table for your kids. And you feel when you can do that, you can feel like you can conquer the world. You feel like you can do anything. It's just such an incredible space of resilience when you feel you can do that. I'm not surprised with this year and the pandemic and the recession that so many people have taken up sourdough baking and everything else, because often you're looking for what you control. So a lot of my work, particularly a lot of my freelance writing work, is actually, I don't often mention words like sustainability and climate change, because depending on where I write for, that's not always something that resonates. But what I do is talk about ways to achieve that end in a way that resonates. Like, have you considered that you could save $60 to $80 per week from meal planning to avoid waste? And over the course of the year, that will mean this much dollar for you. Have you considered that you could have a clothes swap party with your friends? So rather than going out to spend hundreds of dollars on, new dresses and outfits, which you mightn't even take the tags off from, you could go and share with friends. So I guess that's the way that I communicate the message, because often when you see things in dollars and cents, it makes you think about that cost of that second car you don't really need. It makes you think of the cost of buying too much food that you don't eat, or a lot of the choices that are fairly heavy on the environment that you might take. So same, but different.
I'm fascinated. We have here 4 women who come at waste from different sides, and we're all actually telling some similar stories here, where we've all had intersections with money. We've all had times in our life when money was a bit of a problem. We've all noticed that, you know, consumerism is wasting money as well as wasting other resources, and it's fascinating all the different ways we're coming at that. Is this part of our circular economy story that we need to be exploring? Do we need to be talking a little bit more about how we can unpick the wastefulness of our...
I don't think we have got a choice. Well, in fact, we do have a choice. I think we've got 2 choices. We can either become a circular economy, reusing everything, or else we can be forced into being a circular economy as the survivors pick through the debris, frantically actually trying to find resources that are going to keep them alive. If we choose to become a circular society, we can stay prosperous and we can stay comfortable. If we continue to pollute and to exhaust resources, humanity is going to be scrabbling in the dust. Either way, we will become a circular economy.
Jo, I think one of the important things to consider there is that there's a lot of talk, but it's the doing. It's the actual, you know, let's start doing it. There's so much talk. And one thing I'm often called at work is the ideas doer. And it's because I think of an idea and then you've got to go out and actually do it. So my thing would be stop the talking and put the wheels in motion to do it.
I find it really fascinating that the financial independence, retire early, FIRE movement has really embraced a lot of environmental concepts. So at its face, it's just about, you know, earning as much money as you can and saving as much money as you can in a short space of time so that you can retire early. But when you look at it more deeply, there's a lot of people, particularly younger people, who are questioning a lot of the presumptions we have about modern society. You know, going to work in a job you hate, driving in a car for many hours, grabbing takeaway coffee on the way that you throw out, you know, grabbing lunch, you know, wrapped in plastic that, you know, you may or may not finish to eat, you know, rinse and repeat. Cycle goes on, buying too many clothes that you don't even really need to, you know, impress people you don't even like. A lot of, I think, younger people are saying, well, really, that's not sustainable. You know, like, you know, where is the environmental aspect with this? You know, they're choosing to live in a more conscious and intentional way once they've reached their FIRE target. It's not necessarily that they stop working. They're just saying, we want to get off this treadmill. And I think, really, we have to look at all of that. You know, if we just continue, all of us, to live in the way we've always lived, you know, it's a disaster waiting to happen.
I think that's right, Serena. Now, I've just been given my first question, and Josie, I'll throw this one to you first because I think this might be best in your patch, but I think everybody might weigh in. When you're out grocery shopping, what's your one best tip to save money and reduce waste?
To save money and reduce waste. Well, as a dietitian, this is an easy one. I generally get people to walk around the outside of the supermarket and avoid all the middle rows, because really what you only need is on the outside. You go to the fruit and veg section, and then you might go to the milk, and then you go along the back and get your meat. And then, you know, if you look at it, you can pick, say, your breads. You end up with a much smaller trolley, smaller waistline, and a lot less waste. So that's one of the things that I think, plus it makes it so much more affordable because you only buy what you need. You don't take the kids down those aisles where they see the Kit Kats and the new Freddo Frog has got a new, you know, rainbow flavoured gooey stuff inside. If you avoid them, they don't know about it. So you're reducing your pest power.
That does sound like a compelling reason to avoid the middle of the supermarket. Jacquie, I know you will have some great tips here.
Well, first of all, it's a lot more fun growing food than actually wandering up and down a supermarket. And it takes far less time to do it. But I would actually say spend a little bit more on something which is delicious. It's so easy to buy a packet of biscuits, and no packet biscuits are delicious. It is better to buy more expensive tea, because you will really enjoy that cup of tea rather than buy the cheapest tea bags. Buy only things that you are going to really love to eat and consume, and spend time doing that. It is, forget the sausages, forget the pasta with tomato sauce, please forget the vegetarian lasagna. Learn to cook, but even more, learn to eat. Learn to really enjoy food and learn what food tastes like. We've got generations now who have actually never tasted fresh berries, have never tasted a fresh potato for the taste of soil and sunlight, have never tasted the tomato or even a fresh onion. A fresh onion actually has a flavour rather than just an acridity. Learn to eat.
Yeah,
that might be also the answer to hospital waste too, speaking as a hospital consumer. Please, what is wrong with serving an orange or an apple in a hospital? I know a lot of patients don't have teeth, but please give us a choice and don't always actually give us canned fruit salad. There would be far less waste if people just served delicious food.
Yeah,
I second that.
That is good advice. Serena, what's your best tip?
Well, I guess there's several. I mean, taking a shopping list, like I know that sounds so obvious, right? But most people don't go shopping with a shopping list. And even before you make the shopping list, you know, do a bit of meal planning. Just think about what you've already got in your cupboard, your freezer, your fridge, and everything else. And craft your meals around that, because there's going to be a temptation factor, whether you've got your kids with you or not. Ideally, go shopping without your kids, because there's always going to be what my kids call a tax when they're with me, you know. And as you know, so much food is marketed to children. It's got the cute little cartoony things, or this, that, or the other. You know, some people are very good at navigating that, but with me, there's always a tax with the kids. So if I go shopping without the kids, I'm guaranteed already not to spend as much, and not to spend as much on processed food. But just spending about 15 minutes, having a cup of tea, thinking about what we've got in the fridge, what we actually need, writing a shopping list. When I notice something I'm running out of it, I put it on the shopping list. And that way it makes it so much easier to navigate the supermarket. I mean, Josie was talking about making sure you just go on the perimeter. That's a particularly good thing for those who shop at Aldi, because the middle aisles are temptation city. I do get tempted from there from time to time, so guilty as charged. But you'll notice when you go into a supermarket, if you just need something like milk or bread, it's never right near the checkout. It's right in the far corner, and that's quite deliberate, because supermarkets are designed to tempt us. They're designed to lure us in. They're designed for us to spend a lot of time in there, and it's designed for us to get lost. So you need a plan, like you do. It's a psychological warfare in a way. You need a plan of attack when you go to the supermarket. And also, as Jacquie said, food is not just from a supermarket. We've become so, I guess, what's the term, indoctrinated, that the only way you get food is from a supermarket. That is not the only way you get food. I mean, I have, you know, a balcony which is very shady, but I can still grow herbs there. I can still grow some things. I still have neighbours who give me food, friends who give me things. Like, you know, abundance is really everywhere. It's not just in a supermarket. And I do a bit of urban foraging as well. So there's all sorts of things you can get. It's not just in a supermarket.
Yeah, it is a great idea to grow your own and eat what you have. And I've got to say, one of my fondest memories when my daughter was young was when she was pre-verbal and out picking tomatoes in the garden, and then she taught the dog to pick tomatoes, and then we just had no more tomatoes. And now we have 2 generations of dogs that have learned to pick tomatoes.
As a politician, this is a plea. Don't give permission for any buildings in Canberra, any blocks of flats or what have you, unless they have got floors where people grow food. We don't actually need a garden to grow food, and particularly in Canberra, where we do not have the best of climates, whether it's a bushfire or whether it's a 9-degree frost. There are grow lights. There are solar-powered grow lights. If every tall building if a third of that was given over to green space, we can actually have a farm within a city.
Yeah, we have the
again,
OCG
yeah.
have actually launched quite a few policies in that space, and we're looking forward to a lot more green buildings and a lot more urban farms going in Canberra. So we'll see how we go. Now, we've got another question here, and this one's close to my heart. 2020 has been a hard year for everybody. It's been a particularly difficult year for small businesses, and small businesses can be a source of waste. They're also probably particularly keen on saving money and reducing waste. So how can we help small businesses in particular reduce their waste in general?
Do you want me to answer that one?
I would love you to, Josie, jump in.
Okay, well, to recycle and is actually cheaper than it is to go to landfill. So one of the big things that we saved thousands in the first year at the hospital, and also the businesses I've worked with, is that if they can get a commingled recycling bin, that's an immediate money saver, because putting it in landfill, you've got the higher rates and then you've got the landfill levies. So that was the first easy done step. Then you can do your, you separate your food waste. Food waste is very heavy. So if you take food waste out of your general waste, a lot of it ends up being soft plastics. And ideally, if, you know, it's not at the point where RedCycle can take commercial soft plastics yet, but hopefully that will be. So that's another two, you know, good ways of being able to reduce the business costs. The other thing that we had is we set up a collection point for the cans, you know, the refund for cans. And at one of the RGAs I worked with, and it kind of meant that it was out the front, people would drop their cans off, but then they would go in and they would buy their milk and their bread. So they've actually started a few little, you know, some of those TerraCycle boxes where you can do free drop-offs of Colgate toothpaste and corks. I've made a suggestion of maybe putting those in a little corner of your shop, because it will maybe encourage people to come in and drop them off and maybe just buy a little few things that they need. And, you know, there isn't a cost to doing that obscure kind of recycling. It's something that's out there, it's just that nobody's really doing it. So there's a few little handy hints that have been a big money saver.
That's great.
I'd go even larger as the daughter of a management consultant, where Dad would always say that the major mistake small businesses make is overcapitalizing. You probably do not need an office. My brother runs a very large international business and is also a lifesaver. He does not have an office. As he said, his clients have got absolutely no idea whether he's actually on top of the shark watch in the middle of the beach, answering their inquiries and working there while he's actually looking for drowning people. So many businesses think they actually need to have space, they need to get bigger, etc. Don't get trapped into that. Some of the most successful people, I was actually even thinking of Warren Buffett. You actually don't need offices and space. What you're looking at here, this half square meter is my office. And I employ 4 people. Don't overcapitalize.
Yeah, and I think e-commerce has really opened up the possibilities in that space for a lot of people, actually. Serena, would you like to jump in on this one? Have you got any tips for small businesses?
Oh, yeah, I guess want to acknowledge with compassion, it has been very hard for a lot of small businesses. Some have been able to be very agile early on and to pivot. For some, they hate that word, and it's like, you know, pouring petrol on the flames. And so if you're in that category and you hear me say pivot, just with love, I'm not suggesting you've done anything bad, because not all businesses can pivot. And I think, you know, Josie and Jacquie have already shared so much wisdom in this space, but we are seeing obviously a trend now for more and more people working at home and realizing you can be efficient working from home. In fact, a lot of people are finding they're even more efficient because they're not wasting time commuting. And a friend of mine in Brisbane who does consultancy work in the transportation space, she said, you know, literally state governments are often spending, you know, millions and millions of dollars just so that people can get to their desk by 8:30 or 9 a.m. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, even if you are going to a workplace, you know, stagger it so that not everyone's arriving at work at the same time. Be much better for your office environment as well, because you've got different people, some early, some late. It'll be staggered, but also too, in terms of, you know, government spending, it'll be a lot more efficient. which, you know, in the long run means less taxes. Probably you don't see that immediately for small businesses. But definitely, I think, you know, this is that Japanese concept of, I only can remember the Chinese word for it, which is, I think, gaijin, but, you know, this concept of constantly finding ways to make small improvements, you know, that they use a lot, particularly with manufacturing, constantly looking at where you can find the efficiencies. And as part of that process, a lot of companies, particularly manufacturing, often do find ways that there is waste and bottlenecks that is holding them back. So I guess I'd say to small businesses, you know, rather than feeling you have to do everything all at once, just, you know, have that constant mindset of, you know, constantly looking at ways that you can make small improvements and small efficiencies. Where can you reduce the waste? Where can you reduce your energy usage? Where can you reduce, you know, real estate costs or transportation costs or other things? And all these things are going to help with your bottom line. And if you're a small business who has, you know, more than one person in it, more than a micro business, I guess recognizing that innovation can come from anywhere. This is something that's very big with a lot of corporate cultures such as Google. It's not just the CEO who comes up with the good ideas. So listen to your staff. They're often seeing the waste. So ask them, how can we improve things? How can we do things better?
Jo,
And how can you diversify as well? Yeah.
just something I would really like to mention, because I'm very passionate about it, particularly with supermarkets. The best way to save money is to donate your food first that you can. Give it to OzHarvest. The IGAs that I have worked with have almost halved their cost to landfill by being able to freeze a lot of their food on that best before date. And if they freeze, then they give it to OzHarvest in a frozen state. And there's the Food Act laws that are designed for that purpose. So we can actually donate that food first and give it to people who need it. Then you're only throwing out a tiny bit that then you can compost or have separate organic waste collection. So if I can get any message out there, it's donate what you can first.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic advice. And OzHarvest and Dave are doing such a great job in Canberra. So we definitely need to support those businesses and stop that food going to landfill. It's a terrible waste. So that's great. We've got a series of questions, not surprisingly, about plastics. And it's 2020, again, is throwing up challenges for all of us. So there are a lot of people quite concerned that we're increasing our plastic waste because people who perhaps were using reusable containers have moved back towards using single-use items. And we've also got a lot of people who are increasingly concerned about the plastic packaging that isn't recycled at the moment, shampoo bottles, toothpaste tubes, all of those little items. So have you three women come across any good ideas to reduce your plastics, or perhaps some bigger picture social ideas so that we can solve the problem at a different level? Jacquie?
I think we should probably have one day a year, which is Take It Back to the Supermarket Day. And one day a year, we all take the plastic that came around the cauliflower or the very small bottle of shampoo, and we save up it all. And one day a year, we all take all of it to the nearest supermarket and we give it back to them.
Great idea.
I think I've heard something similar to that idea in Germany. And I think the Australian government is desperately trying to work on this problem to avoid that. Josie, do you get a lot of single-use plastics in the hospital environment, perhaps?
Yeah, look, we do. And working in a hospital is so hard not to be wanting to collect every single one of them, particularly in something like COVID. Look, it's one of those things I think we need to get better as a country, being able to manage the plastics that come from, and a lot of this isn't clinical waste. It wasn't necessarily, it didn't have any COVID patients on it, but it's still, ends up in landfill. And so until we get those big factories that are able to process, particularly KimGuard. KimGuard is that soft plastic that Jacquie probably know when you're in hospital that they use now as sheets. You know that they're actually getting rid of sheets and they're using plastic for people to lay their head on a pillow, and they've got plastic curtains and plastic bed covers. We are dying in a sea of plastic, and yeah, it is a hard space to be in if you're a waste warrior in a clinical environment. So it's just keep speaking that voice and you know, promoting all the good that I can do in my small space. There's definitely room for bigger manufacturing happening in Australia to solve it, though.
Serena, it may not intersect so much with the money saving side of things, but what's your view on plastics?
Well, yeah, definitely. Why spend $2 to $4 to buy a bottle of water when you can take your own and refill it up? It definitely intersects. There's no question about that. And I guess I just wanted to say how heartbreaking I felt that, when the bushfires were on, especially in early January where everything was happening down the south coast. But of course, it happened a lot earlier. And I know, Jacquie was impacted with fires around in Braidwood, and my in-laws were impacted by the Black Ridge fires in late November. They didn't lose any property, but it came within 2 kilometres and it was scary. But what I thought was fascinating was this knee-jerk reaction that everyone went out and bought plastic bottles of water to transport down the coast. I remember going to the supermarket here in Canberra, all the plastic bottles of water were gone, because not only were people sending it down to the coast and to fire-affected areas, they were buying it themselves because they were scared. And I just felt how sad that was. How sad that we didn't have an environmentally friendly solution to what many people were saying was a climate change problem.
Except we do with the water, just actually reusable, washable containers that you fill up with chlorinated water from the city.
And a tap.
That water it is actually safer than the bottled water, which often hasn't been treated and hasn't even been inspected. For example, I buy my olive oil once a year from a farm in central New South Wales. I buy it in bulk. It means I don't have a lot of containers. I buy my nuts. I love almonds. I can't grow enough almonds. So I will buy about 8 kilos of almonds a year, and that will see me for the year. And they come in a box, a cardboard box that the lyrebirds can actually dig up. That doesn't need, it is so much cheaper simply shopping once a year. Buy your olive oil, buy your nuts, buy your sugar in a large bag, which you can then use for something. But then again, I am speaking as someone who only gets paid twice a year. So it does mean that actually twice a year, I actually have got the money to go out and buy you supply of olive oil. But look, if you don't, when I was at university, we were part of a cooperative, and we would just take our containers to the cooperative, and we would fill it up with rolled oats, with barley, with rice, with flour, etc. I would love to see us going back to cooperatives where 50 households simply get together, buy everything in bulk, and you'll find that you're spending 10 cents a kilo on flour. I've no idea actually what it is in a supermarket because I buy it in bulk. But I'm
about 69 cents a kilo.
More. Okay.
I love that you both have a price.
A year.
Yeah, interesting. So we've had another entertaining question, which is, what is the best way to convince other people to reduce their waste? Is it leading by quiet example over here, or is it by being as loud and annoying and persistent as you can be? And I imagine there's a bit of room in between there. And it's I'm fascinated in this. Yeah, we've got 3 different advocates with 3 very different approaches. So let's have a little chat about what's worked.
They're not mutually exclusive. We can all do it all. Advocate for political change, advocate for commercial change as a shareholder, as an investor, etc., etc. Simply encouraging people and also live it. Write it, shout about it, make jokes about it. There are 1,001 ways to do it, and I think probably they're all necessary. We do need a major cultural and social change here, and there's going to be no one way that we're going to do it.
Jacquie, would you consider your books are probably a version of leading by quiet example? And I don't imagine any author likes to hear themselves described as quiet, but a lot of your books they're inherently environmental, but they're not often about an environmental topic. They just are by their nature. Yes,
they're about the world that we live in. My feeling is if you Show people the beauty of the world, they will love it. And if they love the world, they will fight for it. But you also have to give people confidence. You have to show them how they can do it, but also give them confidence to actually quit their job and do something that they love, to move to an area where they can grow food or actually buy fresh food, to do what they love rather than what they're told to do on a TV set or in advertisements, and not live that way. Hopefully my books, because most of them are historical, actually show that as a species, we are very good at survival. We are inventive and we can meet challenges. And on a personal and a social level, I think we simply need the confidence to know, yes, we can do this. It may seem so enormous that it's not worthwhile even trying, but it is.
You know,
I would say it is, because
Yes.
what's the alternative? Yeah.
Yes.
Now, Josie, what's your best method? Has it been shouting from the rooftops or quiet example?
look, I once heard that a seed is planted in people like me and probably everyone in this room of knowledge, and that once you know it, you can't unknow it. So, you know, everything I put in the bin now, I question, where's that going to go and where's it going to end up? And if events like tonight can plant more of those seeds that start small and then they grow and grow and grow, then, you know, I think the overall impact of what we could end up being able to achieve would be huge. To back Jackie up in that, yes, you know, humans can do these great things, but they hate change, and they hate change, whether it be for their health or even making, you know, a small change to things like waste. So if we can make it enjoyable, if it's something they enjoy, humans will keep doing it. So what I found is that with the waste and using less of it and planting that seed and watching it flourish, I actually enjoy it. So maybe if people can do something small and enjoy it, it's that if they enjoy it, they will keep doing it. And if they can see the benefit of it, you know, that behavior changes has been done. Behavior change is very hard. It just, yeah, it takes a long time. Turn the big ship around.
This is appealing to me. We have to appreciate the beauty of our world and look to the hedonism in all of us. This is sounding marvelous. Serena,
there's also been, oh, sorry.
Jackie, jump in.
Oh, I was just going to say there's been a lot of research that people tend to believe their friends and the person next door rather than scientific experts. So even if we might be scientific experts, always remember to be the person next door who's giving the advice.
Yeah, that's wise advice. The neighbourhood effect, which I think the climate change movement has just worked out, is more effective than perhaps some of the methods we've been using for the last few decades. So, Serena, what's your view?
Well, I guess you probably know my view already, which is that it's, you know, sometimes, you know, talking about the dollar sign, but more than that, it's actually practical steps. And I do agree very much that that neighbourhood kind of thing, when you see someone like you doing something, you're more likely to do it. Like, for instance, last year I was at friend's place and, you know, they were making pizza. That's their thing they do on Friday. And they were saying, oh yeah, and we make our bread every day for school. Now I had made school bread, you know, for a while, but I just got lazy and I'd stopped. And I was like, is it hard? And they're like, no, it's super, super easy. You know, my husband does it. So of course, then the next week I get out my bread recipe and my bread maker, which, you know, I still used a lot. And now I regularly make bread for my kids for school. Not every day. Sometimes I do buy it from the supermarket, but usually once or twice a week I'll make that. And that then is reduced plastic. You know, it's reduced trips to the supermarket when I run out of bread, you know, and it reduces waste too because there's smaller loaves. So, you know, there's not as much to waste in there. I mean, the kids love it because they love waking up to the smell of fresh bread. But when I talk about that, I don't talk about, oh, you can save this plastic. For my audience, I talk about to make this loaf of bread costs about $1.09, and compared to going to the supermarket, it costs this much. But if you go to the supermarket, you've also got to put petrol in your car, you've got to drive it, you might get a traffic fine on the way, you've got other costs. So if you make it from home, it's cheaper. So everything I do, I try and distill about this is one practical tip that you could do. Because I think change often does happen bit by bit. And And we're obviously in a very supportive environment here tonight. You know, everyone's very passionate about the environment and sustainability, but of course not everyone is. You know, some people are, dare I say it, climate change deniers. Some people just think it's all too hard, that they don't have time. So, you know, I guess a lot of what I do is just trying to instill ways you could do stuff without necessarily saying you have to do everything. Like, just try this one thing. And yeah, and I guess, and it's also leading by example too. I mean, I'm you know, characterize myself as being, I guess, fairly, you know, average middle class, you know, fairly normal. I have my, you know, frugal and sustainability quirks, and I'm sure one day someone's going to see me at McDonald's, because we still go there with our kids, although we never have McHappy Meals. My kids have said for a long time that they don't like the toys, that's just a waste. So yeah, I think it's, you know, also leading by example too is really important, to be consistent about what your message is and how you lead, but also to just, you know, really practical steps of things that people can do in a non-preachy way.
Isn't it marvelous when our kids start schooling us? I love it. So we're coming to the end of our panel session, and I've just been given the 5-minute warning, and I thought we might end with a question, which I'll throw to each of you. And that is, in your zero waste journey, what was the one easiest change you made? And what was the one hardest change you made? Jacquie?
I'm not sure I would have an answer to either. The hardest was definitely the poverty one, where you actually don't have money. You don't have money to register the car, which means you can't take your baby to the doctor if they need it. So yes, the lack of money, the being forced into extreme change. And what was the easiest? I don't know. I think the easiest would be, actually, I know the easiest. It's the furniture. It's everything I inherited from grandma. Whether it's 1001 recipes with potatoes, whether it's how to make scones within 12 minutes, you hear the car draw up and you've got scones, and scones are delicious toasted for supper. Or even for breakfast the next morning. It's the furniture that she left me, which will last for hundreds of years. It is solid and it's beautiful because she designed it. So I think my easiest one is grandma.
That is just marvelous. Josie, with the zero waste journey on the hospital, what was easy and what was hard?
Easy. Getting people to bring in their batteries. Battery recycling was an easy one. Most people know that batteries in landfill aren't good. Hard, you know, getting everyone on board. And I would say there's always, even in every group talk I've ever done, there's always a couple of people who are resistant to change, and, you know, maybe want to, poison's not the right word, but don't want to see something good kind of fly. So getting everyone on board is hard. But yeah, something like little obscure things like battery recycling, that was really easy in the hospital environment.
And what about you, Serena? What was the easiest thing and what was the hardest thing?
I guess the easiest thing is my love of op shopping. Oh my goodness, there are bargains there. You know, when you didn't have a big budget for lots of, you know, fashion, op shopping to the rescue. Actually, these days, a lot of my clothes come to me free via clothes swapping. My sister and I, who are a similar sort of height and curviness, have been swapping clothes for years, but, you know, now taking that up a notch with clothes swapping. So most of my clothes are actually free these days. So I guess that was kind of easy because that was something that was fun. In terms of things that were harder, well, I guess there's still so many things that are a work in progress. Like I definitely don't think I'm perfect. I'm definitely not growing as many veggies as I'd like on my garden. I keep forgetting to water them, which is I'm discovering as a key kind of problem. But yeah, just constantly, you know, learning new things. There's always new things to learn. There's always new ways to improve. And, you know, I'm a mother with 2 kids. You know, I get tired sometimes, you know, and we do end up at the McDonald's, or we do end up with things, you know, that have, you know, more plastic or more things or more processed things than I'd like. So just learning with self-compassion to be, you know, kind to myself. And it's a real issue, I think, for the younger people. Like my son, when he turned 8 a couple of months ago, he decided that he was sort of going to go zero plastic. And within an hour or two, he's like, but this is too hard. Like, this is plastic, this is plastic, this is plastic. You know, so with self-compassion, understanding that we are probably not going to be perfect. There are times when we are going to go and buy that plastic drink bottle or other things, and just to accept that.
Yeah, and isn't it great to be kind to ourselves and one another, because change is hard and we don't have to do it all at once.
No, and we have days where we're just tired and cranky, or, you know, things just aren't working perfectly, and yeah, that's just how it is.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us at the Zero Waste Festival. And this has been, thank you for sharing your zero waste journeys, your personal journeys. Jacquie French, Josie Grenfell and Serena Bird. I think we're at the end of our session now, and I'll wrap it up. But for anybody who's watching, there will be more Zero Waste Festival tomorrow. So make sure you jump back in and we'll learn some more. And I'm Jo Clay. I'm one of the members of the Legislative Assembly, and I am very excited to take all of these tips and make them happen all over Canberra.
Thanks, Jo.
Thank you.
Bye, Jacquie.
Bye.
Bye, Serena.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.